Welcome back. You're watching Beyond World is One. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest. I'm Shivan Chandra.
And I'm Hem Kaur Sara. And on the show today, in a sign of deepening cooperation, the United States has approved the sale of 31 MQ-9B armed drones to India. We'll get you the specifics of this deal on the show today.
Also on the show, in yet another shocking development, another Indian origin student has been found dead in the United States, this time in Ohio. As per the Indian consulate in New York, investigation is underway and authorities are in touch with the family. Let's get you started with the headlines. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest.
U.S. Congress clears much anticipated MQ-9B Predator drone sale to India. Official congressional notification to be issued today. High-level Maldives delegation arrives in New Delhi amid ongoing discussions regarding presence of Indian military personnel in the island nation. Indian origin student at Cincinnati's Linder School of Business found dead. Latest incident marks third reported student death in United States since last week. Big respite for Kyiv. European Union seals deal to provide Ukraine with fresh $54 billion support package despite Hungary's weeks of threats to veto move. Qatar's foreign ministry says Israel has agreed to a ceasefire and Hamas has sent an initial positive response for possible hostage release deal amid Gaza war. Lewis Hamilton officially leaving Mercedes at the end of 2024 season in one of the biggest moves in the history of Formula One. The seven-time world champion will join Ferrari on a multi-year deal.
In a significant development that underscores that the deepening strategic partnership between India and the United States, the US has approved the sale of 31 MQ-9B armed drones to India. The deal is said to be at an estimated cost of $4 billion. We're going to decode the mega drone deal between Washington and New Delhi. Firstly, let's put things into perspective regarding the cost of the mammoth drone deal between US and India. Well, it's equal or more than the International Monetary Fund's $3 billion bailout for Pakistan that was approved to save Islamabad from defaulting on its debt repayments. The budget, it's also more than the budget set by Maldives for the year 2024, which accounts to be at $3.2 billion. The deal, which India's $4 billion assistance to Sri Lanka in overcoming its financial crisis, and it's even more than Bhutan's 12th five-year plan, which amounts to around $3.72 billion, which is less than the drone deal between India and the US. Now, viewers, under the deal, India will get 31 high-altitude, long-endurance UAVs, of which the Navy will get 15 Sea Guardian drones, while the Army and the Indian Air Force will get 8 each of the land version, which is the Sky Guardian drone. Remember, the Indian Navy already operates 2 unarmed Predator drones, which are on lease from the US. Now, let me tell you some features about the 31 drones that India will buy from US. The MQ-9B drones are advanced unmanned armed systems. They are also known as Predator B. They are a variant of the MQ-9 Reaper, the drone famously used by the US to kill Al-Qaeda leader Ayman al-Zawahiri, manufactured by General Atomics. The Sky Guardians are aerial-focused drones. They can operate over 40,000 feet and can carry loads of around 5,670 kilograms with an endurance time of over 40 hours. These drones can be used for surveillance and reconnaissance in all types of weather. It is also equipped with anti-submarine weapons and airborne mine countermeasures. Now, the MQ-9B Sky Guardian and Sea Guardian drones are highly versatile UAVs capable of executing a diverse range of missions which include law enforcement activities, border enforcement, defensive counter-air measures, airborne early warning tasks, and search and rescue operations, humanitarian assistance, and it can also help in disaster relief. Now, for more on this, to discuss it further and to understand the real capabilities of the drone in more detail, we have with us Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis, who's joining us from Sterling, Virginia. He is a military expert and a senior fellow for defense priorities. He was also the host of the show Daniel Davis Deep Dive on YouTube. Welcome to the broadcast, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Mr. Davis, let's just start off with, of course, we have given a roundup of the capabilities of the drone, but this is a drone that the US has used extensively in several missions. If you can give us a roundup of how exactly this can enhance the surveillance capabilities or attack capabilities of any nation which possesses these drones.
Well, there's a number of things. Number one, it's very reliable. These aircraft can operate and continue to be in the air. They have long endurance times. They don't break down, especially if they're maintained properly, but they don't break down very often. So you can rely on them going up there. Their capabilities, though, is probably the biggest issue there. As you pointed out, they can fly up to 40,000 feet, which is above what only a handful of nations on the earth can even reach with anti-air missiles. So they're also very secure and can just loiter in place for a long period of time. The optics are exceptional. And then, of course, the payloads for those that have the arming capabilities to launch weapon systems is also quite substantial. And it's actually also quite better than even a lot of the higher end fighter jets because it can loiter for a long period of time. You don't have to have a pilot, obviously, in the air, and the thing can stay up for many hours, which a pilot ordinarily couldn't do, and it doesn't use as much fuel. So really, any way you want to look at this gives you enhanced reconnaissance capabilities and superior strike capabilities.
Right, Lieutenant Colonel Davis, I in fact want to understand this better. What kind of tactical advantage do these drones provide on land and sea, also when used with Hellfire missiles, in fact?
Yeah, because one of the things that these aircraft can do in the reconnaissance role is it identifies targets. It can also, depending on the package array, it can laze targets and designate for other munitions. So you can fire potentially a Hellfire missile from another platform, and then this drone can help guide it onto its target. So it just gives more flexibility to the Joint Force Commander in any given spot that they can use many things to bring to bear on a single enemy target.
Lieutenant Colonel Davis, I just wanted to understand a little more about the Hellfire missile. We saw the way, it is known to be absolutely precise in terms of where it strikes and who it strikes. Is that kind of capability possible across larger distances as well? Is that how capable the Hellfire missile is?
It does, yeah. That's one of the definite advantages of the capabilities of that missile system, because they're extremely accurate, and they can be fired from a long distance away. So that gives standoff capability, because the further you can fire it, and we've even seen some similar kinds of things from the Russian side, frankly, in the Russia-Ukraine war, where many of their missiles can fire beyond the range of the air defense capabilities of the Ukraine side, so that the platforms that actually fire the missiles don't have to worry about return fire. Now, then you have an aircraft that can fly up to 40,000 feet above, that can have reconnaissance and can actually help designate the target, then obviously that gives you even more security in firing those missiles from the long range and keeping your forces safe.
All right, that was Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis joining us on World DNA. You can check him out on his show, Daniel Davis Deep Dive, on YouTube. Always a pleasure having you here with us, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Now, shifting our focus now, a high-level delegation from the Maldives has arrived in New Delhi to discuss the presence of Indian military in the island nation.
Mali's delegation has both diplomatic and military representatives and is expected to table dialogue with the Indian side later today. Now, this meeting will mark the second core convene of the two sides over the issue. In the first meeting that was held on the 14th of January, the two countries agreed on finding a quote-unquote mutually workable solution. The meeting also concluded that Indian aviation's evacuation and humanitarian operations will continue to hold in the country.
Now, meanwhile, the meeting also comes at a time when the Maldivian president is struggling to, in fact, save his chair. The China-leaning president took office in November last year, and in just 3 months, he is staring at an impeachment here.
The Maldives Democratic Party, or the MDP, which is the main opposition in Maldives, is on the edge of initiating a no-confidence motion against the Muizu government. The development follows the clash between the ruling coalition members and the opposition in the parliament. The country's constitution dictates that the president can be impeached with 2/3 of the House. The MDP, which holds majority in the parliament, claims to have collected enough signatures to support the no-confidence motion. As per reports, 56 members have given support to the motion. Back in November, President Muizu was selected after securing 54% of the vote share. Here is how the numbers add up in the parliamentary house of 80 members. You see, the Maldives Democratic Party, or the MDP, has 43 members in parliament, while the Democrats Party holds 13 seats and the Muizu-led coalition only has 19 members. The Maldives parliament seems to be headed for a major showdown, and the president is treading on thin ice. His supporters have submitted a counter motion against the speaker and the deputy speaker of the house, both of whom belong to the opposition.
Now, as per a report by the European Union, the ruling coalition, that's of the Progressive Party of the Maldives and People's National Congress, it deployed anti-India sentiments in the 2023 presidential polls. The EU mission also noted that the political as well as the campaigning expenditure that lacked transparency.
The drama and anger around the current government in Maldives escalated after a 14-year-old child from Maldives lost his life due to delay in medical evacuation in January this year. Holding on to his anti-India propagation, President Muizu overplayed his hand. He refused to use an Indian chopper for the evacuation of the child, and that led to the child's demise.
Now, this incident, in fact, it sent the Maldivian people and opposition members in a frenzy against the current government.
Days after two Indian origin students were killed in the United States, another student has been found dead in the country's Ohio state.
Now, the Indian consulate in New York took to social media platform X and said that police investigation was underway and authorities are in touch with the victim's family. Now, the victim, identified as Shreyas Reddy Benegeri, was a student of the Linda School of Business at the University of Cincinnati. The latest shocker, it's the third such incident that has come to light only within the last week.
These fatal attacks on Indian students come at a time when the United States has recently processed a record-breaking number of visas for Indian nationals last year. Significantly, Indian students are the largest group of international graduate students in the United States, and they make up more than a quarter of the over 1 million foreign students studying across the United States. Just days ago, killings of Indian origin students Neil Acharya and Vivek Saini sent similar shockwaves. Neil Acharya, a Purdue University student who was reported missing on social media on January 28th, was later found dead.
Meanwhile, 25-year-old Vivek Saini was hammered to death by a homeless drug addict in Georgia's Latonia city. Saini had recently earned an MBA degree in the United States, was striving for a job while working at a store as a part-time clerk. Shifting our focus now, Israel is preparing to advance its war on Gaza further south.
Now, this is after claiming to have dismantled Hamas in Khan Yunis, but they want to continue south now. The renewed southward push comes even as diplomatic efforts in pursuit of a ceasefire have accelerated.
Israel's defense minister Yoav Gallant says that success in Khan Yunis meant that the forces could advance to the Rafah on the enclave's southern border. More than half of Gaza's 2.3 million people are sheltering in this particular area in makeshift tents and public buildings.
Meanwhile, Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry says that more than 27,000 people have been killed in Gaza since the 7th of October 2023, when a surprise Hamas attack on Israel killed more than 1,200 people, which triggered the full-scale war in the region. International appeals to Israel to exercise restraint while hitting civilian areas have not produced any concrete results.
In the latest, the U.S. President Joe Biden issued an executive order that aims to punish Jewish settlers who attack Palestinians in the West Bank. This order, it follows a surge of violence triggered by the war in Gaza, of course. And the Biden administration imposed sanctions on 4 Israeli men that it's accused of being involved in settler violence in the West Bank.
Meanwhile, Qatari and Egyptian mediators hoped for a positive response from Hamas to the first concrete proposal for an extended halt to the fighting. A ceasefire proposal is known to have been agreed with Israel and the US at talks in Paris last week. Sources say that the text envisages a first phase of a 40-day ceasefire. During this, Hamas will free remaining civilians among the more than 100 hostages that it still holds. Further phases would see the handover of Israeli soldiers as well and the bodies of the dead hostages.
I hope that Hamas will take it, and Israel, the government will take it and go, and we will be behind it and do it, and not take back. There are a lot of people alive there, and we need to bring them home. My father-in-law, there is no time for him.
Official Palestinian sources say Hamas is unlikely to reject the proposal outright. However, it may demand guarantees that fighting would not resume, something Israel has not agreed to.
Police in Turkey have detained an armed man who took the staff hostage at a Procter & Gamble factory on Thursday.
This after a 9-hour-long ordeal. The police rescued all 7 hostages. This included a woman. The motive of the hostage-taking, that seemed to be apparent protest against Israel's military campaign in Gaza.
The regional governor's office said that the hostages were unharmed, adding that the operation to rescue them was launched after negotiations with the hostage-taker failed. The suspect, who the PNG says was not an employee, wanted to draw attention to the ongoing occupation in Gaza. The suspect entered the factory in Jebzi industrial zone around 3 p.m. local time on Thursday. Security forces were immediately rushed to the scene and sought to persuade him to give himself up. Relatives of the hostages also gathered around the factory awaiting their release.
Now, a photo released by local media earlier also showed a man inside the factory whose face was covered with a Palestinian scarf. He was wearing what looked possibly like an explosive device. Another picture from the scene showed the man holding a gun in front of a wall on which Turkish and Palestinian flags were painted with a script that read, "Gates will open, either coffin rest or death for Gaza." An explosion was reported off Yemen's coast on Thursday. No casualties have been reported in this attack so far.
Now, the explosion happened near a vessel west of the port city of Hodeidah. It was reported by the United Kingdom Maritime Trade Operations Agency. The blast was followed by a volley of missile strikes by the Iran-backed Houthis, which invited retaliatory strikes by the US and United Kingdom. In a separate attack, a maritime security firm, Ambri, said that a missile was fired from Yemen and it hit a merchant vessel early on Thursday. This after the United States targeted 10 attack drones and a ground station controlled by Houthi rebels. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin has said that this is a dangerous moment in the West Asian region.
But the Houthis, their activity needs to come to a halt, and we will call upon Iran to quit or to cease supplying the Houthis with these advanced conventional weapons that they've used to attack ships in the Red Sea and the Bab el-Mandeb.
U.S. forces also destroyed a Houthi surface-to-air missile on Wednesday, which posed an imminent threat to its aircraft. And this came after Houthi rebels said that they fired missiles at a U.S. ship quay in the Gulf of Aden. Since the month of November, Houthis have been hitting Israel-linked vessels and other vessels in the Red Sea in order to stop Israel's war against Hamas. Pentagon says Houthis have launched over 30 attacks on commercial shipping and naval vessels since the 19th of November.
The United States has also set up a multinational naval task force to help protect Red Sea shipping from repeated Houthi attacks. The key maritime route carries up to 12% of global trade. In addition, Washington also redesignated Houthis as a terrorist organization in January. U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin apologized for concealing his prostate cancer diagnosis and hospitalization from President Joe Biden and the rest of the government.
Now, Shivan, of course, we've seen how earlier this year, in the beginning of this year, in fact, this became such a huge issue. And he has now said that he is still recovering. And that's all that we know so far about this.
Here's a report from him. Here's a bite from him, rather. Let's listen.
Now, I'm offering all of this as an explanation and not an excuse. I am very proud of what we've achieved at the department over the past 3 years, but we fell short on this one. As a rule, I don't talk about conversations with my boss, but I can tell you I've apologized directly to President Biden. And I've told him that I'm deeply sorry for not letting him know immediately that I received a heavy diagnosis and was getting treatment. And he has responded with the grace and warm heart that anyone who knows President Biden would expect.
Austin was hospitalized on the 1st of January for complications from a December surgery to treat prostate cancer, but President Joe Biden and top White House officials were not notified. While the Congress was not told until the following day, Biden did not learn of the cancer diagnosis until the 9th of January.
Now, it's this lack of disclosure that led to changes in federal guidelines and triggered an internal Pentagon review as well as an Inspector General review into his department's notification procedures. Both reviews are ongoing and members of the Congress have called for hearings on this matter.
Austin's health problems and secrecy over his treatment come as U.S. forces are fighting off daily Houthi missile attacks in the Red Sea region. And they are preparing for a military response to the killing of 3 U.S. soldiers based in an outbase in Jordan in a drone attack.
It shows how strong we can work together. It shows.
And Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has thanked the European Union for approving an aid package of $54 billion on Thursday.
He'll definitely be happy now that the funds are starting to probably come in. Now, welcoming the fund that will help alleviate the financial crisis in Ukraine, Zelensky has called the aid, and I'm quoting here, a clear signal to Russia. The Ukrainian president also said that through the fund, the union has proved that its word matters. However, the EU fund is not for the front line. The money will cover pensions, it will cover payment for the war-displaced people and general outlays like salaries. Ukraine's finance office said that it expects the first installment in March this year.
Now, during the announcement, President Zelensky also expressed concern and uncertainty over future American support. This as a $60 billion fund for Ukraine has been stalled in the U.S. Congress. The Congress has held the funding over the Biden administration's handling of the migrant crisis.
The new deal between the Union and Ukraine includes a yearly discussion on the funding package. Another precursor to the support package is that Ukraine will uphold the rights of minorities in the country. Media reports suggest that this precondition could be over Budapest's concern for Hungarian population in Ukraine.
Meanwhile, the approval of EU aid, that's a sigh of relief for Ukraine. Of course, there was fear over Hungary and Prime Minister Viktor Orban once again blocking the funds. In December 2023, the Hungarian Prime Minister, who's also a close ally of Russia, wanted the bloc, in fact, to rethink its policy towards Ukraine and its 4-year-long commitment for funding Kyiv.
Ukraine relies on international funds for about half of its national budget and on foreign military assistance for procurement of weapons against its war and resistance against Russia.
And with that, it's time now for a short break.
Don't go anywhere. When we come back, we will be bringing you more updates right here on World DNA. Top focus, of course, will also be on the less than a week which is left for the elections in Pakistan, which is facing a rising threat of attacks by militant outfits, especially in the two provinces bordering Afghanistan.
India's MEA has expressed concerns over the possible inter-border spill of Myanmar's internal turmoil, while Myanmar's junta has extended emergency amid protests. All details on the other side. Stay tuned.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
As Taylor Swift's deepfake goes viral, we decode the dangers of artificial intelligence in the entertainment industry.
And I'm bad like the ball.
Find out how women are set to rule 2024 Grammy Awards.
Stay in your limit.
And meet Indian filmmaker Sriram Raghavan as he talks about Merry Christmas. All this and more with me, Alison McGrain, at these times only on WION Ether.
On the next episode of World of Africa, Ethiopia's deal to leave a port in Somalia's breakaway region of Somaliland has infuriated the government in Mogadishu and prompted concerns it will further destabilize the Horn of Africa region. Outrage in Kenya over the rise in femicide cases as thousands march and hold protests to call for urgent government action. And beekeepers turn away from honey and harvest venom instead, which is popular in alternative medicine. World of Africa, at these times, only on WION. World is one.
In 1979, two batchmates from CMTI teamed up with their mentor to create a small engineering design bureau.
We could conceive machines from first principles, and that's where we got the confidence that can we start a consulting company where we do design for others. We had got an opportunity to make special machines for a company called Car Mobiles Limited. Once we started showing the exhibition, other auto component companies started coming to us. We realized that if you want to learn anything, buy the best book on the subject, study the fundamentals, and apply it in your context.
As election fever grips Pakistan, WION gets you all the twists and turns. The row over election and selection. Players who matter and what's at stake.
नौजवानों का मुस्तकबिल मेरी सबसे ज़्यादा तवज्जो होगी। गुर्बत का खात्मा करना होगा। एक बार मौका दीजिए।
अगर आप अपने हुकूक के लिए नहीं खड़े हो, आप गुलामों की जिंदगी गुजारो।
The highs and lows as the campaign peaks.
आगे बढ़ें।
I'm Anas Malik. Catch me on WION as I bring you all the latest updates and developments from ground zero.
Who will emerge as Pakistan's next leader?
We are one, you and I. Burning in the sun. Rising in the rain. One in celebration. One in pain. One in a tragedy. One for our rights. One in search of hope. One in our fights. One beyond borders. One beyond our race.
This could be
one in the face of adversity. We are one, you and I, and it's our right to know how and why. WION, you are more connected than you know.
Latest incident marks third reported Indian student death in the United States since the last week.
Qatar's foreign ministry says that Israel has agreed to a ceasefire and Hamas has sent an initial positive response for possible hostage release deal amid the Gaza war.
Big respite for Kyiv. European Union seals the deal to provide Ukraine with fresh $54 billion support package despite Hungary's weeks of threats to veto move.
Kenyan police confirm injuries to at least 165 people in fire caused by an explosion at gas filling point in Nairobi.
Lewis Hamilton is officially leaving Mercedes at the end of the 2024 season in one of the biggest moves in the history of Formula One. The seven-time world champion will join Ferrari on a multi-year deal. Now, Pakistan's acting Interior Minister Gohar Ejaz has dispelled all doubts over holding the general elections on the already announced date of 8th of February.
Now, this is with less than a week left for the elections. The country is facing a rising threat of attacks by militant outfits, especially in the two provinces bordering Afghanistan. Ejaz said that after the recent spate of terrorist attacks in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Balochistan regions, and I'm quoting here, there should not be any doubt about elections, no matter what happens. Earlier, at least 6 people were killed and 13 others sustained injuries in 3 violent incidents in Balochistan's Sibi, Quetta and Chaman and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa's Bajaur district within a day. 2 provinces that are posing as a challenge for the country's election commission are Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa.
Now, the Election Commission of Pakistan had later convened a meeting to discuss the issue of worsening law and order situation in the country. Interior Minister, Secretary Interior, Chief Secretaries along with the Inspectors General of 2 provinces and representatives of intelligence agencies were also present.
Myanmar has been embroiled in violent clashes between the junta and a coalition of armed resistance groups.
Now, the resistance movement, it is determined to overthrow the military government that took over in 2021 in favor of a pro-democracy setup.
Now, the Myanmar's army chief Min Aung Hlaing has extended emergency rule, vowing to crush all dissent. The resistance groups have grown stronger over time. Hence, the military junta has deployed heavy artillery and fighter jets to curb the rise. However, the implications of the rising resistance has not only created an internal turmoil, but also left neighboring countries in a bout of worry. India, amongst others, has expressed concerns over the rise in tensions.
The deteriorating situation in Myanmar, which has direct implications for us. As a neighboring country and friend of Myanmar, India has been long advocating for complete cessation of violence and Myanmar's transition towards inclusive federal democracy. We want an early resolution of the issue through constructive dialogue and return of peace and stability in the country.
The possibility of the tension spilling over into neighboring nations comes in the form of security concerns, of course. The instability in the nation, it also raises the possibility of a heavy refugee influx for countries that share its borders. The 3-year turmoil in the Southwest Asian nation has killed at least 4,468 civilians and has internally displaced 2.3 million people.
Now, it has created nearly 20,000 political prisoners. Multiple reports have also emerged of mass killings and even those of entire villages being burned to the ground. And violence across 106 townships have been reported.
Moving on now, Europe's biggest economy, it's hit with a wave of strikes. In the latest, security workers staged a one-day walkout across Germany.
And this is to press the government for higher compensation. The union has been demanding an increase in the hourly wage raised by around $3, a one-time payment of over $3,200 to adjust for inflation, along with higher compensation for overtime. Listen to this.
Every person standing here at the airport today, many of them are employees and they know how important it is that there are regular pay rises, because otherwise life is just no longer affordable, and that's what it's all about. And that's why I think there's understanding.
Now, as a result, at least 1,100 flights have been grounded on Thursday. Around 200,000 travelers have been impacted. 11 airports, including the country's busiest Frankfurt and the one in capital Berlin, bore a deserted look as well.
The farmers are protesting, the trains are on strike, the airport personnel. There are so many social groups who would have a reason to complain, but not all of them are able to strike. So the ones who can strike, do it, and they all do it just for themselves. There should be another solution. It can't go on like this.
Es müsste anders gelöst werden.
Other airports affected by the strike by the Union Verdi included Hamburg, Hanover, Cologne, Düsseldorf and Erfurt, along with others. Now, negotiations are set to continue next week. This is the latest in a series of strikes that hit country's transportation sector. Last week, train drivers staged a 5-day walkout, their longest ever, and the 4th time that they have gone on strike since November. Verdi has also called for a public transport strike across the country on Friday, which will bring buses, trams and underground services to a standstill.
Shifting our focus to the United Kingdom now, that's currently reeling under an acute migrant crisis.
Now, the Turkey migrant deal collapse comes as another blow to the UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. This after the UK Home Office officials declared that Turkey was not a safe country to send migrants back because of the human rights concerns. London tried to set up a deal of migrants' return with Ankara after noting a surge in Turkish people entering Britain illegally through small boats. According to reports, 3,000 Turkish nationals arrived through boats last year, making them the 3rd largest nationality to do so and representing a 162% increase.
Significantly, UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is keen to strike a deal with Turkey, hoping that it will lead to a similar outcome with Albania. After signing a deal with Albania a year ago, the number of people arriving in the UK on small boats, it's fallen by 90%.
Speaking of the illegal migrants in the United Kingdom, according to the Home Office, over 30,000 illegal migrants are roaming freely on the streets of Britain. Due to UK's Illegal Migration Act, around 33,085 migrants are unable to claim asylum who enter Britain through small boats. The latest Home Office figures say a total of 1,335 migrants crossed the channel in small boats in January.
The United Kingdom has witnessed a record number of migrants in 2022, with around 6,000 more people coming to the country than leaving because of studying, work, humanitarian purposes. In June 2023, in fact, 52,530 irregular migrants were detected entering the UK. That's a 17% increase from the previous year. 85% of these migrants arrived by a small boat.
All right, now let's take a look at WION's monthly global economic health check. First, let's look at how global markets performed in January.
Oil rose over 6% with Brent crude hitting nearly $83 a barrel even as Red Sea tensions escalate. Gold closed out the month slightly lower but still held above the $2,000 mark. And on the other hand, the dollar reversed to gain as expectations for an early Federal Reserve rate cut faded.
Moving on to Asia-Pacific stock markets, Japanese stocks performed strongly in January, rising over 8%. Australian stocks saw a 1% gain. The real estate and economic crisis weighed heavily on Chinese stocks as the Shanghai index over 6%. And Indian benchmarks closed out January marginally lower.
Now this rally, it continued in the American stocks with the S&P 500 and Nasdaq hovering near record highs. The picture was rosy for the European and African markets. All indices in the region rose.
Coming to the overall economic outlook in the Asia-Pacific region, well, the International Monetary Fund gave a big thumbs up to India. The outlook for Japan and China was upgraded on policy support, while the prospects for Australia remained negative.
For the Americas, it was a mixed bag. The outlook for the US was upgraded, with the US economy broadly expected to have a soft landing. The economic activity expectations in Canada and Argentina were cut, while Brazil's prospects improved.
On the other side of the Atlantic, the negative outlook seems to be widespread, with the UK and other European economies predicted to just about avoid a recession, while African economies are expected to underperform.
Now, the new year, it brought bleak news for job seekers. Job cuts, that is.
Yeah, announced job cuts in the US surged in January, reaching over 82,000. It's a 136% increase from December. And this also marks the highest monthly total since March 2023.
Now, while overall cuts are down 20% compared to January 2023, this sharp rise, it does indicate potential trouble ahead. The financial and technology sectors led the charge. Cuts more than doubled year-on-year in finance, and from tech giants like Amazon, Alphabet and Microsoft, companies cited restructuring, closures and cost-cutting as primary reasons for this.
Other industries including manufacturing, retail and healthcare also witnessed job cuts, highlighting the broad nature of this trend. While the full picture is still emerging, experts emphasize the complex interplay of economic factors, technological advancements and company-specific strategies driving these changes. This surge coincides with the start of earnings season and an election year, suggesting that companies might be bracing for potential policy changes and economic uncertainty. Experts also attribute the trend to ongoing automation and AI adoption across various industries. All right, next up, let's take a look at the updates from the world of technology, starting with Pegasus. According to reports, the Israeli-made spyware was used in Jordan to hack the cell phones of at least 30 people. This includes journalists, includes lawyers, human rights activists and political activists as well. Out of the many targets in Jordan, one of it was Adam Kugel. Human Rights Watch Deputy Director Adam Kugel in an interview said that it was difficult to imagine who other than Jordan's government would be interested in hacking those who were targeted. Pegasus is a powerful spyware that can be used to track a victim's location, record their calls and messages, and even access their camera and microphone. It has allegedly been used by governments to target journalists, activists and political opponents. The Jordanian government is yet to comment on the hacking incident.
E-commerce giant eBay has agreed to pay $59 million as part of a settlement with the U.S. Justice Department over thousands of pill press machines sold on the platform. According to reports, these machines are being used by criminals to manufacture counterfeit pills that look just like the prescription pills. However, these fake pills are laced with substances like fentanyl, a synthetic opioid drug that is largely fueling the deadliest overdose crisis in U.S. history. As per reports, these machines can produce thousands of pills an hour. It's been alleged that since October 2015, eBay failed to verify buyers' identities, keep purchase records and report the Drug Enforcement Administration to make sure the machines are traceable and not used illegally.
According to a report by Amazon Web Services, more than a third of European businesses adopted artificial intelligence in 2023. In 2021, the European Commission and the EU executive announced their 2030 digital decade vision. The aim was to transform Europe with 5G connectivity everywhere, 80% of the population acquiring basic digital skills and 75% of EU companies using cloud services. However, in 2022, only a quarter of EU businesses had adopted AI. According to the reports, in 2023, over 38% of EU companies were experimenting with AI. The report estimated the positive economic impact of AI at an additional 600 billion euros on top of an earlier estimate of 2.8 trillion euros.
Tesla has been sued by a group of 25 California counties. It's been alleged the electric vehicle maker mishandled hazardous waste at its facilities across the state. Elon Musk's Tesla has been accused of violating state unfair business and hazardous waste management laws by improper labeling waste and sending the materials to landfills that cannot accept hazardous materials. The lawsuit claims that violations have occurred at as many as 101 facilities, including at Tesla manufacturing plant in Fremont. And according to the California Hazardous Waste Management Law, if found guilty, a company has to pay penalties as high as $70,000 per violation per day